In 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis sat in Constantinople and drew a map. He was not an explorer. He was a naval commander, a cartographer by discipline, a man who understood that maps were power. He compiled his work from sources. He listed himself, older charts, ancient documents, accounts from sailors whose names have since disappeared from every archive that survived. The map he produced shows the Atlantic Ocean. It shows the western coast of Africa with remarkable accuracy. It shows the eastern coast of South America with a precision that should not have been possible in 1513. European explorers had barely touched that coastline. The ink on Columbus's journals was still fresh. And then at the bottom of the map, something appears that has no explanation. A continuous landmass runs along the southern edge of the chart. Its coastline is detailed. It shows bays, inlets, and peninsulas drawn with the same confidence as the African coast above it. The longitude is wrong by a consistent margin, which is exactly the kind of error you make when copying from multiple source maps and attempting to reconcile different projection systems. That landmass is Antarctica. Antarctica was not officially discovered until 1820. The first confirmed sighting was by a Russian expedition under Fabian von Bellingshausen, 307 years after Piri Reis completed his map. You could dismiss this as coincidence, a smudge, a misidentification, a southern continent that medieval geographers invented theoretically to balance the land masses of the north, except for one detail that makes dismissal impossible. In 1958, the International Geophysical Year project used seismic and sonar technology to map the Antarctic landmass beneath the ice. What they found was a coastline, a precise coastline buried under miles of glacial accumulation. When researchers compared that subglacial coastline to the southern edge of the Piri Reis map, the correlation was not approximate, it was specific. Bays that appear on the 1513 map correspond to bays confirmed by sonar in 1958. A peninsula shown on the map matches a peninsula that exists under the ice. The overall shape of the mapped coastline matches the actual shape of the continent beneath its frozen surface. Antarctica has been covered by ice for approximately 12,000 years. The map shows what is underneath the ice. In 1960, a United States Air Force officer named Harold Z. Ohlmeyer wrote a letter to Charles Hapgood, a professor at Keene State College in New Hampshire, who'd been studying the Piri Reis map for years. Hapgood had sent the map to the cartographic section of the Strategic Air Command for analysis. Ohlmeyer's response was precise and official. He wrote that the coastline shown at the bottom of the map agrees very remarkably with the results of the seismic profile made across the Antarctic area. He wrote that the geographical detail shown in the map is consistent with the results of the Norwegian, British, and Swedish Antarctic expeditions of 1949. He concluded that the data used to draw the map must have been compiled from source maps made before the Antarctic continent was covered with ice. This is not a fringe interpretation. This is a memo from a United States Air Force officer analyzing the document through standard cartographic methodology. The question Ohlmeyer's letter raises is the same question Piri Reis himself raised in his own handwritten notes on the map. He did not claim to have explored that southern coastline. He stated explicitly that he compiled his map from older source documents. Some of those sources he wrote dated back to the time of Alexander the Great Others he described as maps drawn by Portuguese navigators. Others he could not identify. He was a compiler, not an explorer. He was copying something that already existed. That means the map that showed Antarctica's ice-free coastline was not drawn in 1513. It was drawn before 1513 from sources older than 1513, sources that depicted a continent that has been frozen for 12,000 years. Here is what the academic establishment has done with this information. Nothing, not nothing in the sense of ignoring it casually, nothing in the sense of a structured institutional refusal to engage. The Piri Reis map is acknowledged. It is displayed in the Topkapi Palace Museum in Istanbul. It is discussed in history courses as a curiosity, as an example of early cartography, as evidence of Ottoman naval ambition. The subglacial coastline correlation is noted in specialist literature and then set aside. The reason it is set aside is that engaging with it seriously requires accepting one of two conclusions. Either someone mapped Antarctica before it was covered with ice, which means a civilization capable of precise cartography existed on Earth more than 12,000 years ago, or the ice-free coastline correlation is coincidental, which the seismic data does not support. There is no third option that preserves the current timeline of human civilization. The academic establishment does not debate this openly, because open debate would require acknowledging that the choice is between two conclusions, both of which are catastrophic for the standard model of history. So the map sits in Istanbul, the memo sits in archives, the seismic data sits in geological records. None of them are secret. All of them are accessible. The problem is not that the information is hidden. The problem is that nobody with institutional authority has asked the question they lead to out loud in a peer-reviewed journal with their name attached, because the answer, whichever answer is correct, ends careers. The last confirmed safe assumption in the history of human civilization is that we are the most advanced technological society that has ever existed on this planet. Everything before us was less capable, less organized, less precise. The pyramid builders were clever but primitive. The Greek astronomers were insightful but limited. Medieval cartographers were brave but inaccurate. The Piri Reis map does not fit that assumption. It suggests that somewhere at some point before the ice covered the southern continent, someone stood on a coastline that no human being in recorded history has ever seen without the aid of sonar equipment, and drew it accurately enough that 300 years later, an Ottoman admiral could copy it, and 445 years after that, a United States Air Force cartographic unit could confirm its accuracy against satellite and seismic data. That is not a mystery. That is a document with a chain of custody that leads back 12,000 years to a civilization that knew where it was on the surface of the earth with a precision we associate with the modern age. The map exists, the memo exists, the seismic data exists. The question that does not exist is the official one. Why not?